Thanks for coming along with us. I am your host, Cesar Delgado, for today on Back Roads of Illinois. This is your agricultural news and information about the agricultural industry in central Illinois and across the Midwest alongside in the countryside. I visited Brian Hooks in Springfield, Missouri for Midwest Solutions in Springfield, Missouri. Brian says that the CANAB report is pretty disappointed numbers in Brazil since December. Perhaps they are looking for yields are lower than trade estimate. This weekend is going to be in a cold snap for Illinois. They're getting ready to start planting soybeans for next couple weeks in central Illinois near Bloomington and Peoria. Illinois has the wet weather conditions for next couple weeks. We are back with Matt Kruse from Comstock in West Des Moines, Iowa. I'm joining with Matt Kruse from Comstock in West Des Moines, Iowa. He is the president of Comstock. How are you been? How's it going in Brazil and Rio with your family?
Good, good. Yeah. Well, I was down in Brazil for pretty much all of December and January, and I missed a lot of the cold spells. I know it got down to 20 below zero in January, so I'm glad I missed that. But I came back in February. I'm here back in Iowa now, and yeah, we led a tour of some Americans down to Brazil and went to several different places, Mato Grosso and Rio, in late January. So I think everybody had a good time and we made it back safe and sound.
Let's start our conversation with your experience in Brazil since December. How is the growing season for December? Could you explain to our listeners?
Well, yeah. So, since December, the rain, probably late December, the rainfall really started to pick up again. For most of the center west region. Now I have to be careful because Brazil's a big country, right? And there's soybean production spread out all over the country, but most of the larger production areas are in that center west region in Mato Grosso, and so I usually reference those quite a bit. But prior to December, it was pretty dry, and I think the rains did start to pick up there in kind of mid to late December, and of course that helped partially with a partial recovery to the crop. Um, but the big question that traders have is how much, and that's what we're continuing to debate today. I have personally been more in the camp that while obviously the rains helped, that damage had been done, irreversible damage to the crop, and I didn't see that was something that could be have a full 100% recovery at that point because a lot of the soybeans are planted in mid-September. They can begin planting by September 16th in Mato Grosso, for example, and so by the time it really started to the rain solidified in mid to late December, they're already 2 months into that growing season. And so those that planted early suffered the most is what we found out. And those that planted later, maybe still didn't have the best crop, but didn't get hurt quite as bad. Um, and that was evident when we went there. The crops in general looked stunted, looked a lot smaller. And now we know that crop height is not always the best indicator of yield, but this was different. The crops didn't look quite as healthy as they had in previous trips when I've been there and looked at it. And so, um, and talking to the farmers there, I mean, you saw yields were all over the place. There were fields that were abandoned that they just gave up on, which I don't think that's ever happened before in Mato Grosso's history. Um, some of the worst fields that they did run the combine through yielded 10 bushels per acre or less. But then there were fields that were irrigated and got, maybe 75, 80 bushels per acre. And so yields were all over the place. And so I think that the point is these were large areas too. These are large farms. These were not isolated areas. And so there's a lot of producers that were used to getting, 55, 60, 65 bushels that were getting 40 and 45 bushels. And so I think it's as a whole, I think that, the yield is going to be down 20% in Mato Grosso and in surrounding states, and they make up the biggest portion of production there.
Are you serious?
Disappointed and concerned, and you're hearing some reports of, um, uh, you know, I think financial difficulties are probably going to increase. I think some of the production growth that we've got used to hearing in Brazil every year, I think it's probably going to come to a brief halt. I don't not It's not going to stop forever, but I think with combined with low commodity prices and a poor yielding crop, I think people are going to be they're going to lack the incentive to want to expand acres.
How are the green market for today's open?
For today's open, corn is actually doing uh, pretty good today, better than I thought. We had a down day yesterday, um, but we've had a little bit of a rally. But we're mid morning here right now, and we're up 5 1/4 in the May corn. Um, we're down a penny in the soybeans, and so. Um, I think we're probably the market's looking for more information, good, bad, or otherwise, and we have the acreage report that's coming up here March 28th, and so I don't know that people are gonna dig into either a bullish or bearish position between now and then. I think we're just gonna kind of trade sideways, looking for more information until then. And so, what we're two things we're watching, of course, is the weather and the safrinha corn production in in Brazil right now, which it looks like it's going to be dry next week. But after that, it looks like there's going to be a return to rainfall. So I think that's going to have an effect on the corn market and the prices. And then, of course, people are going to be debating here, what acres are going to be intended acres in the March acreage report here at the end of the month.
Now that we were going to talk about the livestock market for today.
Yeah, so we're up today. Yesterday was a little bit concerning because it's at least in the live cattle. I have my charts pulled up here in the live cattle. We're kind of had a outside day down, meaning we yesterday we traded higher, but then came back and traded lower than the previous day, and so that's never a good thing. Now it's today we're up a little bit, um, up almost a buck right now. But I think we're we've had a nice rally since last December's lows. Obviously, I think that uh, it's not to say that USDA reports, they show that the total, you know, cattle inventory numbers are down. And I think they're at 70-year lows right now, something like that. We haven't been this low since the 1950s. And so, a lot of that has to do with high prices, high in the previous 3 years, not at the moment. But and then also drought conditions in I think a lot of the plains areas and out west. Um, and so that's essentially what a lot of that has been happening.
Do you have any final thoughts about these things that are going in Brazil?
Well, I suppose the last, one thing that in my latest report that I talked about is there's a huge gap between USDA crop estimates and those of CONAB's. CONAB is Brazil's equivalent of the USDA, and there's in the soybeans there's like a 8.2 million metric ton difference in their estimates, which is quite large. I think is the highest maybe it's ever been. And of course, traders and everyone wants to know, well, who's right? Is it the USDA or is it CONAB? And so we personally probably have a bias more towards CONAB because they're more local and they're there. Not that the USDA doesn't have boots on the ground in Brazil, but we've seen this happen in the past where the USDA is very slow at cutting their production. They want to see more yield confirmation, and but in the meantime, that's kind of a drag on commodity prices, and so I think that's frustrating where producers in Mato Grosso are experiencing lower yields and know they aren't going to make money, and then the price is dropping more and more despite that, and so there's kind of a disconnect. And I think the same thing there with corn, where they're um, something like 11 or 12 million metric tons higher on their corn estimate for Brazil. And and that's quite big. I mean, it's like 350, 400 million bushel difference. I mean, it's quite a large difference, uh, gap between the two countries and their estimates. And so we still expect the USDA to make cuts in the future. They've been slow and stubborn at reducing those cuts to more closely reflect reality. But the USDA is still kind of seen as the gold standard and the one with the most credibility, and has a uh, unbiased estimate on what crop estimates are. And so there's kind of this debate going on who's right, and so that's really what's going on now. I think the time has kind of come and gone when I feel like they should have made those cuts to the soybeans, but I still think they will in their April report. They're maybe waiting to get past the acreage report. They have a little bit more time on the corn because they just wrapped up planting here, on their second crop of corn in the last couple of weeks, and so um, maybe they get a pass on the corn yet, but we think there'll be more cuts left there as well.
Thanks for coming. My pleasure that you joined the show for today. Thanks. Iowa. We're back with the last segment on back roads of Illinois. We're back on back roads of Illinois. I'm Cesar right here. We talked about the CONAB report from Brazil's agricultural agency. However, I am worried about our weather. We do see the hot weather conditions for this summer in the Midwest. Top priority is passing the Farm Bill for this year. However, lawmakers wouldn't be budget for CPR and SNAP program. Democrats rejected the CPR and the Farm Bill and the spending on SNAP program. Okay, I see that we should take a moment to review the SNAP program and CPR. All right, thanks to listen to Back Roads of Illinois on YouTube. Remember, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. Otherwise, see you on Monday for Back Roads of Illinois. I am Cesar Delgado. Have a good weekend.